All right, so interesting to chat to some of the students and find out their views. Well, stay tuned. In the next hour, we'll be talking to the postgraduates, and that's because at this point we're joined now by Yunus Carrim, who's in the National Assembly for the Financial Planning Committee, and it's wonderful to have him here as a guest with us on the program. Thank you so much for being our guest.
Thank you.
How are things looking for today? I mean, we keep emphasising the fact that, I mentioned it to you, it's a big one for the minister. You mentioned to me, it's not. We're all in this together. It's a big one for the country.
Yes, well, look, obviously, we're severely challenged. The government, the majority party, has acknowledged this much more openly than before. And I think the president, whatever other parties think of him or people in the public do, reached out, offered an olive branch in his reply at the State of Nation address to say, look, let's work together. And I think that's what we have to do. Many other countries facing similar challenges have had to pull together. And it's to extend the work together and cooperate together that we will actually overcome, over time, the current challenges we have. It's not for government or the majority party alone to deal with this. It's not just for parliament, all political parties here, but it's for civil society, for business, labor and other sections of civil society to work with government to pull us collectively out of the current challenges we have.
Put us into perspective. What is the role of your committee in actually putting the budget together?
Interestingly, more than most parliamentary committees, we have a very clear role. It's set out in an act. It's called the Money Bills Act, passed by this parliament, based on the Constitution, which provides the role of 4 committees, 2 in the National Assembly, the Finance Committee and the Appropriations Committee, and our 2 counterparts in the National Council of Provinces. So we have 16 days within which to process the overall budget. The key aspects of this are defined in the Money Bills Act. They include the fiscal framework and the revenue proposals. Those are dealt with by the finance committees in both houses. And then you have the division of revenue and the appropriation, or if you like, the division of the budget across the 3 spheres of government largely. How much goes to national government, how much to provincial, and how much to local. We have public hearings, joint public hearings, to encourage the public to participate. And we're urging once again that it mustn't just be the powerful stakeholders like business and labor. It should include civil society organizations, NGOs, community organizations, and so on. Far too often these days, the people who come to Parliament are the high-powered stakeholders. What about ordinary people and their structures? So we have public hearings next Wednesday and Thursday if we have to continue, and we'd urge people who can come to Cape Town to participate.
You have the financial sector regulation and other laws being debated, but the biggest talking point at this juncture is the taxation law amendment bill. I mean, are we going to see this featuring in the budget at all?
The anticipation is that the minister will introduce the bill. It deals with amending the retirement reform processes, taking into account particularly COSATU and other trade unions' concerns about it. It's anticipated that by tomorrow, at the very latest on Friday morning, we will have it put into the publications of Parliament and referred to the finance committees. Our expectation is we'd planned originally to have public hearings next Monday if it were possible, but now we've postponed that to give civil society, the industry, unions, more time to consider the amendments that are being proposed by the executive. And we hope to have public hearings late next week and then expeditiously process that bill.
Every budget comes with its challenges, that goes without say. But, I think one of the biggest challenges is the plans that the minister may put in place to avoid that junk status that we're perhaps sitting on the brink of. And it's a big stress, it's a big strain on South Africa and our reputation. Is this something, again, that we can expect the minister to really have top of mind?
Well, he has no choice but to address that, and I think he'll find the right balances. Budgets are fundamentally, I think, about finding the right balances amongst competing interests and needs. And I think that we've done it before in a less challenged context, but we've already set, if you like, a foundation for being able to address the current challenges, perhaps better than I think the public makes out. And look, we should be clear. While we are extremely challenged, other middle-income developing countries are too. And we've managed to deal with our challenges, perhaps better than Brazil, better than Russia and other countries. In fact, if you look at some of our strengths, which is what we're focusing on, if you look at the automotive industry, look at how good we've performed there. If you look at clothing and textiles, it was on the brink of complete disaster, and we rescued it from that and have stabilized it. Look at the successes in agro-processing and so on. We've got certain areas of our economy that have huge potential to succeed. They have been succeeding, but they need to be even more successful. And I think the aim would be to stimulate those parts of the economy that have been doing well. So we can balance out expenditure and revenue. We can seek to find the right balances in other respects. We can say, look, we must stabilize the debt. But fundamentally, it's about ensuring better economic growth than the 1% or less that is projected at the moment. And that's our main challenge. And that we can do only in cooperation with business and with labor. If you look at the 9-point program the President set out in our State of Nation address last year, if you look at the 8-point program businesses presented to him, actually, I think there's a reasonable degree of consensus emerging, more than perhaps in the past, between the private sector and government. Now what we have to do is bring in labor, hear their views, and ensure that they too are part of this cooperative national effort that's required to bring us out of the current challenges we have.
Let's just move our attention to what happened at the midterm budget. I mean, that was it seemed like a long time ago, but it wasn't. We didn't have our minister in that portfolio then. And we saw the frustration of the students marching, standing in this exact spot that we were standing in, talking about fees must fall, talking about the circumstances that they find themselves in. Again, another issue I don't imagine the minister can even think about ignoring.
No, obviously he won't. Government has gone some way, some substantial way, given the constraints of the budget, towards addressing the financial concerns of students. But obviously their concerns are more than just finances and funds. It's about transformation of the universities and so on, which of course is being addressed by both the university management and indeed government, the Minister of Higher Education in particular. Obviously the pace at which these changes are taking place are perhaps not as fast as the students would like. But clearly government has also set up, through the President, a commission to look at the challenges in higher education. And there's a very clear effort, a very clear commitment from the government side to actually address these concerns. It's also in our interest as a country that we produce students of the quantity and quality that's required for the economy. But clearly, the students too have to play their part. It's again a cooperative effort between the university administration, the academic staff, the students, their parents, and government. It's again reinforcing the need for greater cooperation and working together. And that's the part that we have to take more than ever before.
It's a normal budget. I see. It doesn't look like there's any extra here. Not that this is your responsibility. I know that, but I'm glad it isn't too. Yeah. But is anybody expecting anything, or is it just business as usual in the way things normally run?
One can't anticipate. If you look at the environs here, there's no more security here than there's been at any other budget speech, presumably because those who are concerned with such issues on the part of the Parliament do not expect any undue protest. Of course, it's the right of students to protest, and they may well choose to do so, and that, of course, must happen, but it must happen in a non-violent way. It doesn't serve the cause of students when they turn to violence, although, of course, it's a minority that does so, but the impact, of course, is huge, no matter how small the minority is, and we expect that they will continue to negotiate with their university administrations, but also with the government. And the minister has only yesterday, I gather, said once again that he will meet with the university student representatives to take the discussions they've already had forward, and so it must happen.
Fantastic. Yunus Carrim, thank you.
Thank you indeed.
As usual, I know your time is very precious, but we really appreciate you talking to us here on the program. Thank you. Here we are broadcasting from Parliament. You can see everybody arriving now, and one of the interesting things was said is you do look around. Security is not any bit tighter than it has been at any other budget, and yet if you take your mind back to what happened at the midterm budget, that was a scene and scenes in South Africa that we hope are not going to be repeated once again. But the minister has promised to actually meet with the students to talk about that at another platform and not necessarily here. All right, so I am going to say goodbye to you.